All right, what's up, guys and girls? How's it going? I am Is There No One Else? I'm bringing you the 4.3.2 patch notes that just came out today. I've read through them once. They're pretty good. Uh, Not a whole lot to talk about outside. I mean, I'm going to go through the patch notes. I think they're pretty good. So, not going to take too much of your time. Let's just dive into it. So, combat and gameplay. Changes the Mundus Stone for Shadow Mundus. It used to be 9% crit damage. They upped it to 13%. Shadow Mundus was lagging behind some of the other Mundus Stones. And so this is a pretty big bonus to the Shadow. I like it quite a bit. I think it's going to bring in... It will not affect critical healing, it's just critical damage. Pretty cool. Like I think this made a lot of sense. I already have an idea for a build with the Shadow Mundus in mind. Dragon Knight, Draconic Power, Spiked Armor. Fix an issue where this ability and its morphs were not properly returning their damage dealt. Storm Calling, Summon Storm Atronach. Fix an issue where the charged lightning synergy granted from this ability was not properly applying the major berserk buff to the Atronach that granted it. They are just as angry as you are and will now have their damage properly increased when they're mad. I don't think anybody is as angry as the average ESO player in PvP. So, we'll see. Psijic Order, Time Stop. Increase the base cost of this ability to 8,100 from 4,590. This is probably one of the biggest changes in these patch notes, guys. Huge increase in cost to Time Stop. Keep in mind that this is before the passive cost reduction from the skill line or the passive cost reduction from the ability to rank up. Rule of thumb, the best way to identify strong, overperforming skills without even having seen them are skills that have a lot of things attached to them that do a bunch of things that are also cheap to cast. So, as an example, Incapacitating Strike. It's still one of the most powerful ultimates, but before they nerfed it a little bit 2 patches ago, cheap cost, knockdown, 20% more damage, major defile, and a lot of damage on top of it. You have 5 very effective things all in one ultimate, that's why it was so powerful. Time Stop is an AoE snare. It's an AoE CC stun that you cannot block or dodge or break. And it also defiles all healing to anybody affected in the area. So it slows you down. If you get hit by it, you don't heal for a little bit. And you take these CCs. And on top of it, it was super cheap to cast. And so even on my Stam Nightblade, where I run like next to no recovery, I was able to have pretty good uptime on breaches when I was fucking around in open world PvP during the double AP event. You need Time Stop on a door. It's like, you know what? I have Time Stop. Let's see what happens. It's still effective. It was too cheap. Too many classes could just stack into all survivability and just spam this, and it was too easy. There was no risk reward to using a skill this powerful. The only risk is that you weren't spamming it enough for your group. You could only push that button so fast. The only risk is to the controller, the button on your controller, from you spamming this fucking button so many times to try and just wreck the amount of people you're XV1ing. Now it's got an increased cost. Makes a lot of sense. It'll still be really effective. It still has all the great bonuses to it, but now you have to pick and choose your spots. Pick and choose choke points. Pick and choose when you're going to move in on a group. The effective groups that really work well together, they're still going to be able to utilize this skill well. They're going to be able to use this to wreck large amounts of people very well. Who this is going to affect is the people that don't really know how to manage their stamina and magicka pools and just spam skills, and all of a sudden they're just going to be out of magic faster. And that's the way it should be with a skill that's strong. So I like it. I think it's good. Yeah. Let's dive into the rest of it. They redabbled in the racial passives. I talked about that yesterday. It's going to be interesting to see what they did. The high elf passive, I'm going to read it to you guys and then tell you what I think. Spell Recharge. The return for this passive will now restore your lowest maximum resource rather than your highest. We also increased the value to 645 from 525. If I remember correctly, this was every 5 seconds, and it was a magicka return, which then made high elves one of the best DDs in the game for PvE. They had the big max magicka pool, high spell damage, plus recovery built into a passive if you use a class skill. Now, it's a utility passive. So if I'm a magicka Sork, it's going to give me stamina. And so this isn't nothing, guys. Roughly 200-ish recovery, when you use skills. You know, there's a lot of classes that can use that. Magicasauric is one of them. You know, every Magicka-based class can use that stamina utility. So I think this makes a lot of sense. It tones down their overall damage a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. And from a PvP perspective, this is very powerful, in my opinion. Obviously, the other one was also powerful, but this isn't that bad, guys. Like, some of you guys are going to be like, oh my god, High Elf sucks now. It doesn't suck. Trust me. Argonian, Life Mender, increased the healing done bonus to 6% from 4%. Resourceful, increased the health, magicka, and stamina restore from drinking a potion to 4,000 from 3,620. After the adjustment to allow flat stats to scale better with CP, we wanted to improve some of the bonuses of Argonians so they could keep up. We targeted their healing done bonus to help make it feel more impactful for their identity as strong healers, and the resourcefulness passive to help highlight their ability to stay in the fray. So they nerfed, reduced the overall potion passive. It's still really strong, guys. Like 4,000 more. It's still essentially a double tripod. That's still strong. They gave some of the healing received back. I can't help but thinking in general Argonians in some ways just got a buff by getting higher max stats than they had before, because they went from 3% to a flat, what was it, 1,000? You know, that's 50% of what a high elf has. And now they still have a good amount of healing done, and then they have almost their potion passive back. So yeah, their healing's not going to be as good. Their sustain's not going to be as good as it was, but it's still good. But yeah, I don't know. The max stats bonus are nice. So I think Argonian's in a pretty good spot. Wood Elf. This is crazy, guys. Hunter's Eye. Reduce the movement speed bonus granted to 10% from 20%, which was the nerf that we all talked about. That this was going to happen no matter what. 20% is way too strong. But now have added a bonus to physical and spell penetration of 1,500 for the duration. So this passive was when you dodge roll, you gain this bonus movement speed for 3 seconds, if I remember correctly. So it could stack with the bow dodge roll passive. And so you dodge roll, you get the bow speed for 4 seconds. You get this for 3 seconds. They work together. And so you could have 45% movement speed on a Wood Elf, which made it automatically. This one passive in and of itself made Wood Elf, in my opinion, the best 1vx race in the game because of that. And now 10% is more in line. It's still powerful. It's still going to be really good. But now they added this unique quirk to it to where when you dodge roll for 3 seconds, you get this little bit of spell pen. This is the same as a 2, 3, or 4 piece bonus, almost. I think it's 1,650 for the 3 and 4 piece, and now this is 1,500 added to passively roll dodging. So where this is going to come handy is those roly-poly Nightblade builds. Dodge rolling builds are going to utilize this pretty well. This is going to, once again, put Wood Elf at the forefront of Stamina Nightblade builds, in my opinion. Like, this is a cool little passive. Spoiler, we heard your concerns of adding in a highly powerful movement speed bonus tied to roll dodging. Yes. As well as the performance of this passive in PvE versus PvP environments. We wanted players who are focused on damage to get a small boost out of this in situations where they dodge attacks without adding more passive power to the race. All makes a lot of sense. So, yes, you get this pen, but you don't get this pen all the time. It's when you're on the defensive, when you dodge roll, then you counterpunch. That's when this is going to be effective. And you have to counterpunch in a short window of time. It's only 3 seconds. So we're going to have to test this and see when this comes into effect. Like, is it at the start of the dodge roll? Like, can you initiate the dodge roll or like surprise attack and then dodge roll, and it'll work? Or is it after your dodge roll is complete and then you get it for 3 seconds? These are the things I got to know. So very, very interesting. Wood Elf is still good. Breton, spell attunement. Spell resistance granted by this effect will now be doubled if you are afflicted with burning, chilled, or concussed. Really interesting. Makes Bretons more I mean, they're the tanky Magicka class. They nerfed some of their resistance because they wanted to give them Nords. Now, if you're affected by a status effect, you now get higher spell resistance. Makes a lot of sense. Dark Elf, dynamic. They changed this. So it used to be 1250 of each stat and then 500 health. Now they've just made it 1875 magic and stamina. On top of that, they have spell and magicka bonuses. So this is once again going to be like the best. Hey, I don't know if I want damage. I don't know which one. Magicka or stamina I want to be. That Dark Elf's always going to be a very good choice due to the high stat pool and the high spell damage. So, spoiler, previously the adjustments to Dark Elves deviated a little too far from their original implementation. We noticed we can still highlight the race's identity of duality and blade and magic without their max health. So I removed it in place for returning power to their other flat stats. So, at the end of the day, it's an end of an era for Dark Elf being the Magicka DD. Dark Elf is now the all-utility. You can have good to great damage, stamina, or Magicka DD. So, it is what it is, guys, but this is going to be very useful in a lot of builds. Dark Elf, Stam, and Magicka DK, both those utilize the max stamina and max Magicka bonuses. Magplars also do. Stamplars also do. You know, having that extra stat pool for tankier builds really does come in handy. Dark Elf is going to have a place. It's going to have a place in quite a few builds. It's not what it used to be. You know, it was very unique as like the Dark Elf Magicka DK Flame Knight, you know, but it doesn't have the flame damage anymore. It's still going to have a bunch of damage. I'll have to test some of my builds on my Dark Elf to see if I want to go Breton, High Elf, or Dark Elf, but this is bringing Dark Elf more in line with the previous two. Imperial, Red Diamond. Rework this passive so when you deal direct damage, you now restore 333 health, magic, and stamina. This effect has a 5-second cooldown. It would also reduce the cost of block and bash by 5%. So, this turns out to about roughly 130 recovery. I did the math earlier, guys. It's not bad. You know, 130 magic and stamina recovery every time you deal with direct damage. This is going to come in really handy for tanks, since puncture is direct damage. Makes a lot of sense to passively just have both of these. This is going to work out really well on sword and board builds in general. And plus they get the nice max stats as well. You know, it brings them more in line. The old Red Diamond, I agree with this change. I like that change quite a bit from what it used to be. Khajiit, increase the max health, magic, and stamina bonus to 825 from 750. Feline Ambush, decrease the duration of your stealth radius to 3 meters from 5 meters. Robustness, increase the magic and stamina recovery to 85 from 75. So Khajiit is kind of like Dark Elf. So instead of having, you know, the flat damage, now you have the crit damage. And then Khajiit just have a little bit of everything, guys. A little bit of health, a little bit of max magicka, a little bit of stamina, a little bit of recoveries, and a bunch of crit. It's a really good race. I mean, yeah, you're not going to be upset being a Khajiit on just about anything. Like this just has a little bit of everything. Obviously, specialized builds for specific playstyles. There will be races that are better. But Khajiit's just one of those, like, jack of all trades. And on top of it, it's the best race for PvE DPS with the crit bonuses. So, depending on what the new changes are. But before these changes came into effect, Khajiit was number 1. Orc, Brawny. This passive now grants 2,000 max stamina instead of 500 health and stamina. Unflinching Rage. This passive now grants 1,000 max health and heals you for up to 600 when you deal damage with a weapon with a 4-second cooldown. Previously, it granted 4% healing taken and 380 stamina health when dealing damage with a weapon. This makes a lot of sense. I think this goes really well in line with the Orc. I don't think Orcs needed a sustain passive. Obviously, the sustain passive was awesome, guys. Like, Orcs were up there for DPS. You know, from a PvE perspective. They had really good damage, and their sustain allowed them to maintain that damage. But that's not what an Orc is. You know, Orc is a big fucking brute that just shits on people. Who gives a shit about sustain when you're killing something in 2 seconds? That's what this is now, and it makes a lot of sense. 2,000 max stamina, 1,000 max health. They got really good max stats now. They still have the movement speed passive, so if that ever gets adjusted, that's great. Got rid of the healing taken. That is noticeable. But the 2,000 max stats, I think a lot of people would say, you know what, fuck that extra healing taken. We're going to be able to heal better with the max stam. So, yeah. Orc was already in a good spot, in my opinion. I think this puts them in a better spot. It really defines their role more as just I'm going to hit you as hard as I can, as fast as I can, get fucking ready. So, I like it. I'll have to try and figure out which class I want to be an Orc. But, yeah, I like Orc quite a bit. Redguard. This is probably one of the best ones. Martial Training. Added a bonus that reduces the effectiveness of snares applied to you by up to 15%. Now, literally everybody that had every other class is now strongly considering going to Redguard because snares are so fucking prevalent in PvP. Having any sort of reduction is amazing. Redguard Wardens, you know, the snare reduction stacks, guys. So Redguards have snare reduction now. Obviously, Wardens do. Then there are sets like the Ranger's Gate set and my favorite Barkskin that have reduction as well. So, very interesting. And in my opinion, Redguard was kind of falling behind some of the other classes for PvP. I strongly considered changing a bunch of my Redguards to like Orc and Nord. There are no Nord changes. Nord just remain the same. But now with this snare reduction, I just might keep my Redguards. Reduce cost and snare reduction makes a lot of sense. So very good passive for PvP for people that love their Redguards. Champion system, they updated that. Itemization and item sets. Deadly Strike fixed an issue where Deadly Strike weapons were coming from the offensive heavy armor box. They now come from the offensive medium armor box. All right. Item sets, they fixed minor invulnerability. It's a debuff. It was counting as a buff, so now you can purify it or purge it. So Infallible Mage, Noble's Conquest, Scavenging Demise, and Wise Mage you can now all cleanse. Curse Eater. Big change. Updated this item set so when you use a direct healing ability on a target, you removed 3 negative effects from them. If a negative effect was removed this way, it will restore 600 magicka. So you get a little bit of recovery. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds. So purifies more, gives you a little bit of magicka. The condition with which it procs is a little bit more difficult, so it's going to restrict who it applies to. And this effect can occur once every 8 seconds. So a longer cooldown. In my opinion, these changes make Curse Eater not as overpowered as it was. It was too easy to proc before. Essentially, like, no Sork fighting somebody wearing Curse Eater would ever be able to get their burst combo off because Curse would be getting purged left and right. Like, there's just nothing you can do about it at that point. So, this makes a lot of sense. It makes it effective. Makes it a pretty cool set. You know, maybe this eliminates Barkskin. You know, maybe I finally found something to get rid of Barkskin. But we'll see. Previously, the interaction of proccing on any heal over time ability allowed the set to effectively negate all incoming buffs, which left little room to control or fight the target. We wanted to retain the purge mechanic with the set while retracting from the passive gameplay it allowed for. The duration increase was made as well to ensure some classes' core abilities cannot be completely denied at a regular rate, such as Haunting Curse or Backlash. In these changes, however, we wanted to ensure the set was still worth using, so we increased the values of return and outcome. I agree with all that. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It still seems pretty strong. I'm not going to throw out the OP word, but it's strong. Icy Conjurer. The set now deals its damage over 8 seconds rather than 4 seconds. This was done in an effort to reduce the burst damage potential of the set. The total DPS of your Icy Boys will still be the same. It's a slow proc. It does a shit ton of damage. It's like a slow-moving tank. However, there's a few ways you can proc it, like on Calurians. Like if you do it up close, it's going to still be brutal. 8 seconds over, it's still a really nasty damage over time effect. It's a lot of damage. It's nice that they reduced the burst that it provides, but I think they also still need to reduce the damage. Like this is just a ridiculous set, in my opinion. Steadfast Hero fixed an issue where the casting certain purge abilities could proc this item set without needing to remove a negative effect first. Okay, Symphony of Blade fixed an issue where this item set could proc on pets. Your pets are tireless and have no need for magic or stamina return. They only need your love. That's nice. Sagavine's Warband. This set now generates a stack whenever you deal any critical damage rather than only critical light or heavy attack damage. This was done in an effort to help this set be more manageable to keep up. Zone Guide, Macam Client. So no changes to movement speed in these PTS notes. Maybe I misread, but I thought movement speed changes were coming this patch. Maybe it's next patch. Not what these patch notes are good, guys. You know, like I'm not going to be like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? This is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make all these adjustments, and there's nothing that's standing out to me where it's like, holy shit, like this is retarded OP right now. You know, I think Curse Eater's still strong, but you know, it's a strong utility set. It's not so strong every single class is going to run it because it's going to purge so many skills off their bar that it's worth having in that way. I think it's going to be very specific. And some classes won't even be able to proc it, you know. So you have to have direct healing, not heals over time. So yeah, very, very interesting. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to cut it off here. I will post a link to these in the description. If I missed anything, please comment in the section below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.